it comes to prioritizing and it is the sort of the strategy stuff as opposed to the busy doing stuff. I call it working out your core drivers. So probably I should have said this before I shared it, but so your core drivers are the things that you're going to do in the short term that are going to get you where you want to be in the long term. So you start with where you're going, the destination. Where are you trying to get to in 3 years, 5 years, whatever that is. Then you do your milestones working backwards, like what needs to happen over time. Because remember, you don't have to do everything tomorrow. And that's the really important part, is that it feels overwhelming because you feel like now that you've decided to make things happen, you want to shake everything up and make it all happen at once. But the reality is you've set yourself a time frame. So remind yourself what that is. What is the end game here? What's the time frame on that? And then what are key things that need to change over that time? So if it's 5 years, you've got, what needs to happen across those years for it to happen. And then you ask yourself, what do I want to have happen in the next 12 to 18 months? And so I call them your core drivers. What do you want your core drivers to be? Which is another word for its objectives, I suppose. And how to determine that is if we get together again in 12 months' time, and we look back at what you've achieved, and you say, right, that I've achieved that successfully, what would that be? And you don't want them to be too many. You want them to be sort of 4 or 5 or 6, because if you take too many, you'll set yourself up for failure. So it's look backwards from where you want to be in a year's time, and what do you want to have? What things do you want to shift the dial on? And then the reason I brought this Pillars of Growth plan, is just to give you some ideas of what those categories might be. So you might want to look at, what about our product? Do we want to make any changes, which is basically what you sell? Do we want to make any changes in the next 12, remembering where we're trying to get to? Do we want to make any changes to this in the next 12 to 18 months? And if so, what are we wanting to do? What would a success look like if we achieve something in this area? And you might be yes or no. You might be totally happy with your product for the next 12 months. I don't know. Then you go, what about the business model? This is right, the train, going backing the train into the station and going, actually about the business model itself. Are we comfortable with, what we're trying to achieve? Have we got a good vision in place? Are we confident that we can do what we want to do with the business model? And you might sort of go, okay, we've got some drivers about that. It might be around delivery, like we really need to improve the quality of our delivery, or we need to improve the systems. And so it's identifying what areas around delivery need to be improved, and maybe having 1 or 2 drivers in this area. Then you look at sales and marketing. If you haven't got your business model and your delivery as highly tuned as you want it, but like this is, we'd be quite happy in the next 12 months if we just keep our existing clients, but actually get much more efficient at how we actually do what we do and delivering what we deliver. What do I want to see happen with the team? Do I want to do some work on culture? Do we want to put in some performance management, better performance management than we've had? If I look back and go, the team, we've made some real advances with our team. What would that look like? And then you've got your financial, what do you want to actually achieve financially? And it could be actual financial goals, as in number of clients, sales, revenues, or it could be around actually, so quite a few of the people in other groups have actually had a driver around actually getting better reporting and better forecasting in place, and actually getting more disciplined around their finances, and have actually that's been a driver that they wanted to tick off. So it's just to give you, in terms of prioritizing, this is something that I've always found helpful, is to look at these areas of the business and go, what things is there anything in these areas that we want to improve over the next 12 to 18 months? And if so, what would they be? And then once you've done that, then you can look at those and go, okay, what really needs to happen? And what actions do we need to put in place to make that happen, and allocate some resources. Who's actually involved in doing this? And and so be realistic, because if you've got so many things that you want to implement, and you haven't actually thought about who's actually going to do it and what resources are required, people, money, what's actually required to make this happen. The reality is you can't do everything, and you will overwhelm yourself if you try to do everything. recap, it's like, where are you trying to get to? Like, where's the destination? And now the train's in the station. What do you need to actually do? And what's the track? Like, what's your plan to get there over the period of time? And then what are the key things that if we do these key things well in the next 12 months or 18 months, that will actually make the train go faster on that track, you know? So, and then put the actions and the commitment and the timeframes around those things. And you might actually have to go, the reality is we're not going to get, you know, you prioritize from there. What things can you actually do and what things can actually wait?